Happy Thursday, and welcome into the PHNX Sun Devils show. I'm Anthony Totri. He is Shawn DePaz.
Yeah, I am.
And Shane is gone again.
Yeah, he is.
This is, what are we doing?
I just don't really think he likes us.
It's been, I feel like, months now, and we've done maybe a handful of shows with the three of us.
Yeah, honestly, it has been a minute. I have no consistency. That's the off season for you, though. It's a lot of change.
Well, rumor on the street is he was just really, really hurt at his own performance in the draft the other day.
Couldn't show his face.
Well, we knew it was his flu game.
Yeah.
Unlike Mike, though, he was unable to return to the court the following day. So I guess hopefully we'll see him on Friday. We'll see how his tummy's feeling. Shane, if you're watching, get some Pepto, maybe some Sprite,
ginger ale,
all the things. Some saltines. Saltines go crazy, dude.
Love a good
my
saltine.
Gosh.
Soup.
I go crazy for some crackers.
Dude, I love a good soup and crackers.
Yeah. Tomato soup? No?
Tomato soup is the most overrated soup in my opinion.
Whoa. Why?
Because tomato soup's like not that good. The only time
With a nice grilled cheese?
that's the only time is if you're getting a grilled cheese dividend.
I
Otherwise,
love
don't want.
tomato soup. That's a bad take, but
Tomato soup is such a top tier.
I don't think it's a bad take. Like I just don't like it. Like I think it's overrated. I like a thicker soup. I'm a chowder guy, chili guy.
That's the East Coast in you.
Big clam chowder guy, big French onion guy. I like any kind of loaded baked potato or potato dumpling soup. I like the thickums.
Yeah. JJ in the chat missed the show yesterday, but appreciated Shane taking a beat in my name when Zane Meeks was mentioned. JJ, at this point, it is anytime we mention Zane Meeks, we expect you to appear. So just keep your phone on you pretty much at all times.
That's why you got to turn the notifications on.
Absolutely. Not talking ASU basketball today. Let's talk ASU football really Pac-12 football in general. Favorite Twitter account, Big Game Boomer, decided to tweet, which coach in all of college football has the most pressure on him. So I figured we could maybe zoom in a little bit and put it on the Pac-12 because there's some big personalities in the Pac. With the addition of Deion Sanders, Kenny Dillingham. Obviously, Stanford has their guy first year in a while without Shaw. And then there are just the other big names kind of scattered all across the Pac-12, right? Whether that be Dan Lanning or Lincoln Riley or Chip Kelly. So we'll kind of get into all these situations. But I do want to start here in Arizona with Kenny Dillingham. I know we've touched on it a little bit, but do you feel like there's any pressure on Kenny Dillingham coming to ASU? Obviously, we've seen his success, not just with Oregon, but really in all his stops. And look, let's be honest, he's replacing a guy in Herm Edwards that it was just kind of a waiting game, right, for him to get out. And now this is really Kenny's program. Is there pressure on him to succeed this season?
Yeah, but I think it's like self-manufactured pressure. I don't think that necessarily, like the bar is pretty low, so I don't think you don't need to make you got to make a bowl game. You don't got to make the Rose Bowl necessarily for this season to be a success. But I do think Kenny being Kenny has started to create a decent amount of expectations for him in the program, and I think even the players have started to. Like, there's just a lot of positive talk. We have our second Beavers fan.
Go Beavs.
Go Beavs.
Clinton
Listen,
here.
I'm pro Beavs. Trust.
Pro Beavs.
I'm pro Beavs.
We'll talk DJ
Uiagalelei.
Yeah, God, I love saying his name so much.
Don't
even Clint. Damn.
Kenny Dillingham ran away from Oregon during the halftime of the Civil War. Cannot confirm or deny. But no, I do think Kenny, he's manufactured pressure for himself just because he started to build so much excitement around this that I think with that excitement naturally comes the expectation that you're going to be good, whether that's fair or not. But I do think there are going to be people coming into the season expecting this team to perform. So there's certainly pressure, but I don't know. It's not the same kind of pressure that other coaches are facing.
Yeah. I mean, one of those other coaches that is probably facing a little bit of pressure, just simply based off of, talking about offseason, like just constructed pressure that he's cooked for himself. Deion coach Prime Sanders.
Yes, sir.
If you want to talk about somebody that has absolutely made, I don't want to call it a living hell, but if you don't succeed in 2023, the hell that is going to rain down on Deion Sanders might be unbearable.
Yeah.
Just because of the whole scholarship situation. I want to say the last tally was like 50 some odd players had transferred out since Deion got here. And I know it was the whole roster overhaul. Still, at least from my perspective, haven't seen all these glorious transfers that Deion has called for. I know they've gotten a couple SEC guys, some former Jackson State guys. That doesn't really move the needle for me. But aside from, what kind of pressure, or is there pressure, right? I'm not even going to ask you that because there is pressure on Deion to succeed just with the roster overhaul. My question for you is, what does success look like for Deion Sanders in year one?
I think it's tough because I think a lot of Colorado fan, I don't know, because I think Deion's whole mindset is like, yeah, we're gonna win a national championship. Like he was at the college ball playoff last year, being like, I want to be here. We're gonna be here.
You're not,
which is not true, and I have a hard time believing that Colorado fans think that's true either. So I think it's kind of a similar situation to Kenny in the sense that I think a lot of the pressure is, especially in the case of Deion, is self-manufactured. I think Colorado fans will have kind of a readjustment period once the season actually starts. Clint saying a 4-win ceiling. I don't know. It's tough. I mean, you don't know what the roster is going to look like, so it's tough for me to put a ceiling. I do think that I think 4 wins. I think when you're a program like them, if you're not bowl eligible, it's a failure. Like you got to figure out a way to get to a bowl. And I think when you get this kind of excitement, like that's the bare minimum expectation. So I think if they get to a bowl, the season will be a success. If they are, even though that bar is really the floor with Colorado, I think even improving by 2-3 wins, that doesn't make you bowl eligible. That's still not enough.
Yeah, I don't think that's enough. No. I mean, bowl eligible, I know is a standard.
Yeah.
Right. Especially with a new coach. Obviously, you want to win more than 6 games, but for a first-year head coach to get bowl eligible, even for Deion coming from a team in Colorado that won 1 game last year.
Yep.
Like, I don't know if that is a success really in year one for Deion. I know it's a step up. It's better than you did last year.
I mean, the context depends a lot too. I think the one thing about Deion's situation is that, and not that Kenny has in any way tried to shirk like responsibility or ownership of this program, but I think when you come in and being like, I'm overhauling this entire roster, I'm getting all new players, I'm bringing in
I'm telling legacy players to go succeed somewhere else.
Yeah, like when that happens, if you fail, instantly all of the blame is going to be on you, and like you have put yourself in that situation. Whereas here, I think there's a lot of and it doesn't matter what the actual reason is for the failure. It's going to be blamed on Deion, which is kind of always the case. But I think here, if they don't succeed right away, it'll be a lot easier. Yeah. But I think if at ASU, if they don't succeed right away, it'll be a lot easier for people to point fingers at other things, not just Kenny. And also the fact that like Kenny has never sat here and being like, I'm bringing my own luggage and it's Louis and I'm getting all these 5-star recruits.
Can you imagine if you
like? Yeah, all right. But Kenny's whole mindset is I am winning, or I am going to build something with Arizona players.
Yeah.
So even if they don't succeed, if he's doing it with Arizona players, you can never say that he's not really doing what he set out to do, which is build a program that's focused on this state.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be very hard, regardless of what they do, for Colorado to be considered successful because of the situation that Deion has put him in this program in.
Lonnie in the chat, Colorado players won 1 game last year. Good they left. Yeah, I understand that.
It's only good they left if they get replaced.
Exactly. And at this point, is there that many quality transfers out there? And for me, right, the difference between what Kenny is doing and Deion is doing, Kenny is building a program, Deion is buying a program. And I don't necessarily think that, at least from what we've seen, Colorado has the capability of sustaining something like that if Deion were to eventually leave. Because let's be real here. Deion Sanders is not going to be a coach that stays at Colorado if they succeed for more than 3-4 years.
Oh, yeah. If they find fast success, then
he's gone. He's absolutely gone.
Because, I mean, if the Jackson State job didn't mean anything to him, which, I mean, I'm not saying didn't mean anything to him, but it obviously didn't mean enough for him to stay there when he had a Power 5 opportunity. Fucking Colorado is certainly not going to. Unless he wins like a national championship somewhere off rip, then maybe he would stay there. But like that's obviously that's not going to happen.
And again, if they do, then you succeed.
Yeah.
Then the pressure that you have felt or that was put on you at the start of the season or from the moment that you stepped foot in Boulder, then it was all worth it. You did exactly what was asked for you to bring that university and that athletic program a championship. However, if you don't do that, if you go bowl eligible after getting, 1 win, you get a 6-win season, a 7-win season, and then let's say you have an 8-win season, and then guess what? somebody somewhere else in the SEC or in the NFL comes calling for Coach Deion Sanders.
Or not even just the SEC, but like if Florida State comes calling, you think he doesn't go back there? Or if I don't know how he feels about Miami being a Florida State guy, but if the U wants to come back, a guy like Deion has got big time the U personality.
Absolutely.
Like, so, and then obviously, you mentioned the SEC. Like if any of those big schools, if he like, and I have a hard time believing Deion is this good of a coach, but say he is successful. If the University of Texas comes calling, if Sark hasn't succeeded over a couple of years, go play
and that's
in the state that you became famous in damn near.
That's just the difference for me when I look at these two coaches, and we'll obviously get into the others because I think there is pressure on guys like Dan Lanning and Lincoln Riley to succeed. But before we move on from Deion and Kenny, right, like the difference between buying and building, right, is Kenny can stay here for, and he wants to, 5 to 10 years, right? Let's say 5 years go by, the program is sitting at 7-win seasons, 8-win seasons, like they've done in the past, right? The difference that you've seen from Kenny early on versus a Herm or a Todd Graham is building a culture, right? It was different when Todd got here. It was different when Herm got here. And after they left, to be quite frank, you can already see a culture shift. What you get when a guy like Kenny has left after you've built a culture like that is just because that coach leaves doesn't mean the players leave. Doesn't mean the way the locker room functioned before leaves. Doesn't mean all the assistants leave, right? So that sticks with the program. What you have when you get a guy like Deion, the way that he has already talked about Colorado or talked about the players or this transfer portal era, right, is when you buy a program and you buy these players, they have no attachment to Colorado. When you send legacy players packing, whose parents, their dad was a part of a national championship team, and you send them on their way, then you lose that, right? If Deion's here for 3-4 years, let's say it's the same situation. You get a 6-win season, a 7-win season, an 8-win season, then he's done. He goes to take another job somewhere in the NFL, somewhere at a higher level in, the world that is college football. Well, when that leaves and you haven't built a culture, you've bought a culture, that goes with the coach. That doesn't stay. There's no roots there.
Well, yeah, because players. The culture is Deion Sanders. Like, he is the culture.
Yeah.
Everything about it is Deion and Deion's cult personality. Like, and I brought this up to you the other day. Like, when you look at those pictures from the spring game, his jacket doesn't have a Colorado logo on it. It has a Prime logo on it. Like, it's Colorado's the place. It's not the program. Like, it's Deion's. It's Deion.
Look, if I'll put it like this before we move on from Deion, because I could talk about Deion forever. If college football was Hollywood, Deion Sanders is Kim Kardashian. That's who you have. You've got a flashy player in every single aspect of his life and his program is going to be put on television. It's going to be put on YouTube. It's going to be out there for everybody to see. That means you're going to see the good, bad, and the ugly. Okay? So just prepare. There might be a little bit more ugly than Colorado fans have been sold or that they're anticipating. That's how I'll leave the Deion pressure conversation right now. Moving on to some of the coaches in the Pac-12 that have already carved out a name for themselves. A guy like Kyle Whittingham. In terms of pressure for him, is there pressure for Utah and Kyle Whittingham to continue what they've done? Or like, would you be able to be comfortable if you were a Utah fan? Not necessarily with like a total step back, but with like a year not in the Pac-12 championship game? Or is there pressure to continue that?
I would say that, there's pressure the other way. I think when you are consistently at this point competing for a conference championship and you are a Power 5 school, the expectation is that you make appearances in the college football playoff, I think. And Utah is not that far away from that. So I think if I'm a Utah fan, I'm like, okay, I'm tired of showing up in the conference championship or whatever. I'm tired of going 10-2. Like, I want to be in the college football playoff. So I think that's the pressure and I think that's the pressure for all of these top end coaches in this conference is make it to the college football playoff. And it's not just from their fan base; it's from the conference too. Like, so I definitely think there is pressure to take another step and be like, okay, because the reality also with Utah is they are one of the best programs in the country, but I don't think they get that kind of respect. Like, people don't care about schools out here. People don't care about the Pac. People sure as hell don't care about Utah. Like, so I think there's a certain amount of like, we need to show the rest of the world. The last time the rest of the world saw them, they lost in a game losing drive to Florida. Right? Like that was the last time that they were like on a real national, like playing a school.
That was game 1, right?
Yeah.
That was game 1 of the season.
And that was the one they lost. Yeah, because Cam Rising threw the interception. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like there's that certain pressure for Utah to be like, look, it's got to be Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, Utah, Ohio State. Like we got to be a part of that conversation.
And I think there is kind of to that point, right? This is the last year for USC and UCLA in the Pac-12. Yeah. Everybody understands that Utah is the team to beat after those schools leave. I think there's incentive and there's pressure on Kyle Whittingham and Cameron Rising in his last year, right? To succeed, make the college football playoff before those LA schools leave.
Yeah, and 100%. And alternatively, I think you get to, well, no one's necessarily rooting for Utah, but if it gets to a Pac-12 championship and it's Utah and USC, everyone is rooting for Utah in this conference. Like no one wants to see USC leave the conference with the championship.
Yeah, not at all.
So I definitely, and I think obviously on the other side of that, it gives a lot of pressure to USC, particularly with USC and UCLA, to be like, fuck you guys, I'm leaving with the championship. But yeah, I do think, and I think Utah has the best chance to be the team that gets in USC's way, obviously. And so I think there's a lot of pressure from the conference, obviously not explicitly, but I think theoretically there's a lot of pressure on Utah to be like, look, you are the ones that have the best chance of keeping this in the family, of preventing USC from making a fool of us.
Yeah.
So go do that, because like I said, the whole world will be rooting for Utah, or the whole conference will be rooting for Utah if they get to that situation.
All right, for all of the Beavs fans that we have in the chat, okay, Clint, Connor, even though we got Clint to say forks up here, back to pack. Let's talk about that guy. Let's talk about Jonathan Smith for a second, because we saw what that program was able to do last season with just a ridiculous defense, and it always felt like they were a quarterback away or just some offensive pizzazz away from really competing in the Pac-12. They were a part of, I want to say it was ESPN's like preseason, real early top 25. Okay. They obviously got transfer quarterback DJ Uiagalelei from Clemson, a big dude, a guy that is going into, I want to say his senior season, which is crazy to me because it felt like he was just a freshman not too long ago. But what kind of pressure is on Jonathan Smith to really elevate this program to the next level? Or is there not any real pressure this season, given what they were able to accomplish last year?
Yeah. First off, we got the whole conference in the chat. We got ASU, U of A, Oklahoma State.
We have reps from everywhere here?
Yeah, we need some USC fans, UCLA fans. Just kidding, those don't exist.
My God.
I mean, I think there's a certain amount of pressure just because it's like you talked about. There's not like any kind of national pressure. National pressure on Oregon State. I don't think people really, all due respect, and I don't say this in any kind of disrespect because I'm a big fan of the Oregon State team. I don't think there's any kind of pressure. I don't think anyone cares about Oregon State nationally. In the conference, people that know what they're talking about, and us, I think it's a mindset of, like you said, the whole excuse last year was there was no quarterback, there was no offensive pizzazz. You got one of the biggest names in the transfer portal this year in DJ Uiagalelei. Like, on paper, the reason you guys were not the best team in the conference has been fixed.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, there is no natural excuse for Oregon State if they do not succeed, especially with how good their defense was last year. And who was it? Yeah, Clint saying that UW and Oregon State lost some of the least talent in the draft. Generally true, obviously. Oregon State lost one of their best offensive weapons, two of the best offensive weapons, I think, in the draft. Obviously, they're tight end, but I do think there is pressure being like, look, you got a quarterback now, or at least people think they have a quarterback. Yeah. You can go back and forth about how good he actually is, but you got to succeed now that you have a quarterback and your defense is supposed to be good. But I would say, generally speaking, like in terms of the conference, like if Oregon State loses, obviously losing every game this season would be a massive failure. Yeah. But even if they did, no one's going to be like, oh, look at Oregon State, the biggest failure in the country. Like no one's sitting here thinking they're going to win a national championship. Although I do think they might compete for the Pac-12 championship, like I've said a bunch.
No pressure, but the dam is building.
Yeah, I do think. I love that. Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it, Clint. Like there's no pressure, but you like the water's starting to push up on that dam. Like there's a little bit.
But it is crazy to see because this Oregon State program for a while was just so bad.
Yeah,
they used to be so bad at football, and I think what that coaching staff has really built there. It's super cool to see.
I'm a huge fan. I mean, I was a huge fan of them all last year. I was banging that drum. I've been banging it off this offseason. I've kind of eased off of the DJ Uyunglele hype a little bit. So I've kind of revised my take from going they're going to win the Pac-12 championship to they will
could have
be
fun
in the Pac-12 championship.
They could have fun in the Pac-12.
I'm not going to be surprised at the end of the year if they're the Pac-12 champions at all, just because of how dog shit USC's defense is.
Yeah,
I think they're super vulnerable. And then Utah, they lost Dalton Kincaid. That's a team that's not flashy by any means either. So
Utah, yeah. Utah is they're
just the most Utah school.
Utah is like the Tim Duncan of college basketball.
Utah is the Utah of
college football.
Of college football.
The Utah.
Yeah, it's just like
the fundamentals.
We don't really know what they're doing out there.
But they win.
But they just are kind of good at whatever it is that they're doing out there. And it's a little weird and not that exciting, but
it's what happens in Utah stays in Utah. Shit, I guess.
It's really beautiful there.
Before we continue the conversation with some other coaches like Jedd Fisch, Lincoln Riley, Chip Kelly, want to tell you guys where you can potentially make some money on Pac-12 football and really just sports in general, guys. That's at BetMGM. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code PHNX. There's a few different offers depending on where you live. But for our Arizona audience, you guys are going to get up to $100 in bonus bets on your first wager with BetMGM. Again, make sure you use bonus code PHNX. Check out the show notes for full details. Guys, we expect to see everybody out at the BetMGM Sportsbook tomorrow. I know the Suns got a game going on tomorrow. We're doing all of our live shows
We'll be live there
from BetMGM tomorrow, and then little bags at the end of the night. Should be a phenomenal way to spend your guys' Friday. Come say hello, even if you are in Oregon. Just get on a plane.
Get on a plane. Y'all are lucky that the Suns play tonight or tomorrow night because y'all won't have to see Saul and I on these boards. We're about to kick some ass. Okay. So we'll see y'all in June.
Just wait till Team Biggie Smalls gets right. Okay.
Okay. You got fucking
Biggie's tummy's hurt.
Yeah. Biggie can't drink a glass of water.
So okay,
I'm not worried.
I'll make sure he's got bubbles. Okay, I'm gonna make sure he's got bubbles. In the meantime, guys, again, check out the show notes for full details. And now you guys get to listen to Shane, aka Biggie's voice, talk about the disclaimer.
Disclaimer, 21 plus to wager. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in Washington, D.C., Mississippi, Nevada, New York, and Ontario. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369, New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, Arizona. 1-800-522-4700, Kansas, Nevada. 1-800-327-5050, Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF, Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help, Michigan.
All right. Well, it looks like I don't know. What are you, the backup quarterback? Wait, you got a bone?
I'm not armchair quarterback anything. I like to pick a bone with soccer betting.
He's a bum. He's a bum.
He's a bum.
He's a scam. No, hey, you want to make money on the BetMGM Sportsbook? Figure out what Max has bet on soccer and do the opposite. In case you don't know, Brighton, Man U playing today. This man bet on them to draw. It is 0-0 for 96 minutes. 97-minute handball.
There's only 5 minutes of added time.
There was only 5 minutes of added time. They play longer. Handball on Man U. Brighton scores a penalty literally at the last second. He loses.
Goal!
And that's
and
why
Max loses money.
You should never. The only time I've ever won money betting on soccer was when I fade Max.
Hey, look. So Max may not have what it takes to win money on BetMGM.
Yeah.
But what Max does have is the ability to provide OGs.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's the provider of all.
He is.
You know,
he is.
I haven't seen Max and God in the same place.
Well, look, I know that PHNX Suns they drafted like superpowers the other day. Nobody drafted Max's ability to sell shit, which I feel like is a total miss.
Yeah, 100%. That would have won my vote.
Yeah.
Super speed's the best power, by the way. So if you do, maybe Max will be a man of the people. Start putting out his soccer bets so you can fade him, and then you could take that money, flip it, spend it on some OGs because they're the best scratch rate gummies in this state, and they probably would be the best scratch rate gummies in Oregon as well for y'all. So make sure you come on down here, get some OGs. We got something for everybody. We got indica, sativa, we got microdose. We got their sleepy time gummies to help you get a good night's sleep. We got some of their happy balance, so you get the positives of the THC and the positive CBD. They got it all, because they're the best. If you want to find them, you can find them at your local dispensary at ogsbrands.com. But as always, you must be 21 or older You must enjoy responsibly.
All right, let's get back to the conversation of coaches in the pressure cooker right now. I also would just like to say, I know I called Deion the Kim Kardashian. I feel like Kenny is the Adam Sandler of college football Hollywood. That's just the way I would put it.
Yeah, he's got a lot of talents.
Laid back. Anytime you see him, you're just like, oh, just it makes your heart happy, right?
Yeah.
I feel like anytime anybody sees Adam Sandler do anything, it's just like, oh, look at him go. And then it's Kim, and then it's like, oh, okay, oh, you're dating another NBA player. Oh, here we go. Let's talk Jedd Fisch.
Yeah.
Why don't we? Because what they're building, are they building? I don't know what they're doing, to be honest with you. Like, what kind of pressure is on Jedd Fisch in Arizona to succeed after what we saw this past season?
Yeah, look, I mean, I feel obligated to at least acknowledge the Jayden de Laura situation. Like, I'm not going to talk about it, but I do feel like if a quarterback is going through something, like, I don't want rephrase that. He's not going through anything. He put himself in this situation. But if your quarterback is in a situation like this, it obviously kind of changes the way you're going to look at the season, especially if he, for some reason, is not able to play.
Yeah.
Whatever. Assuming that Jayden de Laura is there playing and he is playing the same way he was playing last year, I think the pressure is just to keep up. I think it's the same pressure that ASU faces, and you're now kind of in the same situation as ASU. Obviously, a couple years ahead because Jedd's been there longer. But I think at this point you need to just keep pace with ASU, keep pace with your rival.
Yeah.
And then you need to build. You need to. Were they bowl eligible last year?
Arizona?
Yeah.
I don't believe so. No.
So was U of A bowl eligible last year?
No,
okay.
It was that they had a chance to get bowl eligible, and then they got the shit kicked out of them by Washington State.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, that's right, because I remember wanting them to win that game, so ASU could have knocked them out of bowl. Yes.
Well, and it was that whole thing because de Laura was going up against the former team. He ended up yelling at one of his receivers on the sideline. Like, it was that whole situation. Right? Like, whatever happens off the field, that is what it is. Obviously, don't want to get too just crazy into that. Just still waiting on everything to really come out about the whole Jayden de Laura situation. But just looking at Jedd Fisch, right? Because that's been the conversation. We haven't had the conversation necessarily about players per these schools. So just getting back to Jedd Fisch for a second, right? Like, in terms of the program, it does not help the University of Arizona that the draft played out the way that it did for Arizona. Specifically, there was a tweet about the players getting drafted from U of A, and Jedd Fisch said it was never going to happen again, right? As long as he was there, like, they weren't going to go another year without a U of A player getting selected. It happened again. And he got some flack on social media for it, right? This was a year later. But I think if you are going to build a program, that comes with it, right? I know Herm got a bunch of shit for the whole, our goal is to get kids to the NFL. No surprise, guess what? That's really all of the goals of these coaches at the Division I level.
I would also argue the only thing that Herm succeeded at. Like, the one thing that he said he was going to do that he actually did.
But that is part of building a program, right?
And I think ultimately your job as a head coach in college football is to get guys
to elevate them, elevate their game.
Obviously, it's to win, but
the only reason I think that there is more pressure on Jedd Fisch this year than years past is because you have the 1 year where you start and it's like a cop-out year. You have the second year where it's like, okay, we're making progress.
Yeah.
Third year is your time to really carve out a name for yourself and be like, this is what the rest of the program will look like down the line.
That's exactly what I was going to get at, because I think one of the things that we talked a lot about this program in Jedd Fisch last year was they had an amazing recruiting class, amazing transfer class. And I think one of the things that I kept saying was, obviously that's great, but this isn't college basketball. Freshmen aren't making an impact right away. Blah, blah, blah. Like, it's going to take a little bit to build this. Okay, well, now you're a couple years removed. You had those recruits. They need to do something. Obviously, you lost Dorian Singer, so you have McMillan there as your number one receiver, I would assume. Like, you need to see them, those recruits, that all the excitement, you need it to come to fruition, right? Like, because if because the ASU's in the same spot.
Yeah.
Obviously, again, a couple years behind. But if 4 years from now, they haven't done anything, it's like, oh, okay, that dream you were selling us was awesome at the time, but it's still a dream. That doesn't really do anything for me.
At what point does it go from, like, this is what we're building, this is what we're building, to, okay, this is all you are going to do.
Yeah, this is what we are. Yeah, I don't know.
Right? So this is, in my mind, this is the year for Jedd Fisch and Arizona to really take that step. Otherwise, I think you get to year 4 after 3 years of mediocrity, and you're like, okay, I mean, is it time to move on?
Again, assuming that Jayden de Laura is playing, whatever, and all this off-field stuff is not, it doesn't have any effect on his gameplay. Like, he's another year with Jedd Fisch. He should improve.
In theory.
Right? In theory. I think it's similar where it's just like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, this team doesn't win 10 games, it's a failure. That's unrealistic. But I do think you got to take the step. You got to be bowl eligible.
Yeah.
I think when you're a program at the bottom of the conference like that and you're not bowl eligible, like that has got to be your first step. Like, at least let's play 13 games, not 12.
And regardless of bowl eligibility, anytime, and this is not just ASU U of A, this is just college athletics in general, it goes beyond football, is anytime your rival hires a new head coach, you immediately have to either have the same record or you have to be better. Otherwise, people start to look at you, regardless. Yeah. If Kenny comes out here and has a better season than Jedd does in year 1, immediately there's a conversation that needs to happen.
Yeah, I think
if you are in year 3 and a guy is the youngest head coach in all of Division I football in year 1 has a better record than you,
I think it kind of depends on, like, because I mean, if ASU goes 5 and whatever and U of A goes 4 and whatever, like, I don't think everyone's going to be like,
no, but then I think there is a conversation. There is a conversation.
Well, I mean,
because Jedd Fisch is in year 3 and what? Like, I know they had some shit seasons before, but regardless, like, we just talked about it. If you go from a shit season, you get year 1 as a pass. Year 2, you get a little bit less of a pass. Year 3, it's like, okay, what you sold us on all this stuff. Where is the elevation?
I would agree. I think one of the caveats there is that I think beating ASU, if you're U of A, gets you a lot. Like, I mean, vice versa especially in this sport. Obviously, basketball.
If both teams are bowl eligible, I think it's a success for both. I think there is ways for both of these programs, again, not just ASU U of A, but all of the programs that have rivals, right, to be successful at the same time without there being like, oh, we were better than you. If both teams are bowl eligible, given what happened last season for both these programs, then I think it is a success for both. Depends on if U of A went 8-4 and Kenny Dillingham went 9-3 in year 1, then obviously U of A had a successful season. But again, I think even with U of A fans, there is a conversation of like, our rival just hired a first-time head coach, the youngest guy in all of the Power 5, and all of a sudden, they had a better season than us. I think there is a little bit of a conversation.
I think if you're winning 8 games, that's not a conversation. Like, I think if you're that successful, ASU can win the national championship, and U of A fans are going to sit there and be like, "We're building something." Like, obviously, they're not going to be happy that ASU's winning the national championship, but I don't think they're going to. I think when you're that successful, like, I don't think that you care as much about your rival. Like,
no, because you are always pinned head to head.
Yeah, I do
wherever
think,
you go.
I do think the Territorial Cup means a lot more if the teams are in the same space. Like, they're both winning 8 or 9 games, or they're both winning 4 or 5, like whatever. Like, I think then it's like you could win one. Like, say U of A goes 7 and whatever. Yeah, ASU goes 8 and whatever, but U of A wins the Territorial Cup. I don't think there's a conversation at all. I don't think U of A fans gave a single shit. Yeah, because you're both had successful seasons and you're better than ASU, at least on paper.
I think that is one of the few ways in this argument that, again, there are ways for both of these programs to be successful without taking flack. I think that is one. If the team that has a worse record than the other is able to win the Territorial Cup, then they have that over the other.
And I think that's a caveat that doesn't get talked about a lot with coaches and all of that. Like, Deion doesn't have that. Deion doesn't have an in-state rival, like a natural rival that can protect him from anything.
I think they play Colorado State this year.
Yeah, but that's not.
Don't lose that game, Deion.
Well, I mean,
don't lose that game.
That's one of those situations where it's like there's nothing to gain. You beat Colorado State. Obviously, your fans are happy, but like you beat Colorado State, big whoop. You lose, oh boy.
You lose, they're going to put you on Ralphie, and they're going to send you back to Jackson State.
Again, Indiana or Notre Dame is a little different because they're Notre Dame and they're independent, but like Syracuse, for example,
they have rivals. Like Notre Dame's rivals is still like obviously Michigan, their big rivalry is Ohio State, but over there, like Notre Dame hates Michigan. Notre Dame hates USC.
Like, I look at Syracuse, for example. They don't have, especially after they left the Big East, they don't have a rival. They don't have a true rival. They play Georgetown and UConn sometimes. St. John's isn't worth shit anymore, even though they're trying to get back there. Like, there is nothing to protect Syracuse coaches from There is no natural rival to protect Syracuse coaches or give them that extra boost. Like, oh, you didn't have a great season, but you beat your rival. So yeah, like, so I think it's interesting that like that is one thing that Jedd and Kenny have is like some wrongs can be forgiven with beating the other.
Yeah, we got some interesting comments in the chat. Clint bringing up Colorado's rivals of Nebraska and Colorado State. I think the Nebraska game is certainly going to be interesting. And then Clint, Pac-12 QB rooms are so stacked. I forgot about Rashada. Well, we spent a lot of time on Fisch and Kenny, and we've got all these Oregon State fans in the chat. So why don't we go ahead and talk about their rival, the Oregon Ducks and Dan Lanning? Because I do feel like with Oregon State elevating year over year, there is increasing pressure on Dan Lanning, specifically after what you saw at the end of the season when Kenny wasn't running the offense anymore.
That's the obvious
and
piece
you have,
of all
look,
this.
Dan Lanning, let's be honest. You're from Georgia. Everybody expects those SEC assistant coaches to turn into something. You're either Kirby Smart or you're nothing. Like, you have to... Oregon needs to be like the top tier in the Pac-12, or again, there is a question or a conversation that needs to be had of like, okay, we're paying you all of this money. Yes, we are getting recruits. Why isn't it translating?
Yeah.
Why can Utah still beat us?
Is not good enough.
Why can USC still beat us?
Yeah, and I mean, when Oregon had the run that they had for all those years, like you get to a point where, like I said, 10-2 is not good enough. You need to be competing in the college football playoff. I mean, obviously, right? There's like, if there is even there's any kind of noticeable regression with this offense or Bo Nix, it's going to be like, oh, so that was all Kenny. Like, there was not. You don't actually have much effect here. Like, and especially if they win less games, it's gonna. And like I said, their offense looks inept for whatever reason, like it did in their bowl game. It did not look the same without Kenny. Then it's like, oh, okay, yeah.
It's a significant
You're not
problem.
as good of a coach as we thought you were, and that is definitely not a situation you want to be in. Especially, you mentioned ASU U of A. Like, Oregon fans are going to be looking the same way. If ASU is super successful after their offensive coordinator left to take that head coaching job, and you aren't, and your offense is a step back, everyone's going to be like,
I don't even know if the offense. I think there is expectation. Obviously, bring back Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Right. So like, there needs to be. Like, the offense doesn't need to be to the level that it was last year, because I understand why there would be a regression without the OC.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe without the
not even necessarily
system.
just because Kenny is so good, just it was changed.
Yeah. But the defense needs to elevate, right? Dan Lanning, his whole thing was he was a defensive. I want to say a DC. I think he was the DC at Georgia. Like, that is your bread and butter. You are the defensive guy. Same thing with Kenny coming to ASU, right? The expectation is the offense takes a step up. Whatever happens with the defense, I don't want to say necessarily happens. But, like, it's not necessarily going to be put on. Exactly. In terms of Oregon, like, everybody gave love to Oregon's offense last year, and rightfully so. But Dan Lanning, your whole thing is you are a defensive-minded coach. So if your offense regresses and your defense stays the same, then you're not looking at the same type of season that you had a season ago. Then at that point, it's like, okay, did we make the right choice with Dan Lanning? So I think out of all of the coaches in the Pac-12, I would argue that Dan Lanning has maybe some of the most pressure on him to succeed. And we talked about
at a high level.
And we talked about the rivalry, right? With Oregon, with all these teams. But like, Oregon State for Dan Lanning cannot have a better season.
Yeah, I think one of the worst things that could happen is if they play and DJ Uyunglele outperforms Bo Nix and Oregon State wins. Like, it's a very, very bad situation for Dan Lanning. For a lot of reasons.
Absolutely. We've obviously got the LA coaches that I think are going to provide a real interesting point to this conversation. But before we get into the pressure from those guys, real quick, hit pause.
Oh,
you got 18 minutes.
Sprint.
Or dog sled, horseback, whatever you'd like to do to your nearest Burrito Express location. Okay? It is a perfect way to have some lunch. It's a perfect way to start your day. If you're not thinking today, maybe tomorrow, maybe over the weekend, guys, Burrito Express is the place for you. Look, I can almost guarantee that if Shane would have had a breakfast burrito this morning, that his tummy wouldn't have hurt. It honestly would have probably put a smile on him and his tummy's face. Guys, Burrito Express, the best burritos in all of the world. Again, locations everywhere. Give him a follow on social at Burrito EXP while you're at it.
And you're going to need something to wash that burrito down with. So may I suggest to you America's Thirst Shop, a.k.a. Circle K. Simply the best gas station ever. I don't care what you have to say. It's the best gas station ever.
Polar Pops for the win.
Polar Pops, wash it down with a nice Polar Pop. If you're getting one of the lunch ones, they stay colder longer. So you don't got to worry about it melting on your way back because you got Polar Pops. You got the styrofoam cups. They're unique kind of ice that keeps the things colder. You got a cup holder for the burrito, a cup holder for the...
We have talked a lot about Circle K and the snacks and the deals and the gas, but we have not given enough love to the ice.
Yeah, no, we have not. That's why the Polar Pops are so amazing. That's why they stay colder longer because their ice is I think it's proprietary. I think it's like special Circle K ice.
You think they have a patent on the ice?
I feel like I've seen that somewhere before, but don't quote me on that. I don't know. All I know is that the Polar Pops are the best. Maybe you get a breakfast burrito. You want some coffee. Iced coffee, $1.89. Maybe, you got a burrito, saved it for a couple hours, your work day's done, your week's done, you want to wash it down with a couple of beers. 12-pack of beer, $9.99 at Circle K. It's, like I said,
beautiful.
Best gas station ever. And I mentioned the Polar Pops. They're amazing. Well, do I have a deal for you? Right now, you can text PHNX to 31310 to join their SMS subscriber club and get a buy one, get one free offer on 32-ounce Polar Pops. Did I tell you that they stay longer? They stay colder longer. Don't know if I told you that. I am now. They stay colder longer. JJ saying in the chat, good ice is key. Circle K's got that good ice. And if you're wondering where your closest Circle K is, head to circlek.com/store-locator to find Circle K's near you.
All right. Let's talk LA schools here before we get out of here. Starting with the baby brother in LA.
Yeah.
Chip Kelly himself. My goodness, when college football was at its peak, Chip Kelly was running some weird offenses with Marcus Mariota at Oregon. Now he is the baby brother. He is the baby brother in baby blue in LA. And I think it is this year
Baby
is
brother and baby blue. Kind of like the Chargers in LA.
Yeah. It's super important, right? He got himself a quarterback transfer in, or I guess a freshman that was expected to go to Oregon, and Dante Moore. You gotta be, I don't want to say you gotta be better than SC, but you gotta be damn good.
I don't know. Maybe I might be completely wrong here. I kind of feel like Chip Kelly has almost, has almost no pressure. Because, I mean, there's pressure, obviously, but like, it's not coming from the UCLA fan base. There's 3 of them. And like, you're going through this move to the Big Ten. All the attention in your city is on USC. Like, if you don't succeed, it's kind of like, okay, they lost their quarterback. They're going through all this change. They got to compete with USC. Like, understandable. Obviously, you can't go 0-12. Like, you can't be completely abysmal. But as long as you're bowl eligible,
people also just don't care about UCLA.
That's what I'm
football.
saying. Like, who's putting pressure on UCLA? Like, who's putting pressure on?
I think administration maybe.
Yeah,
right. Like, but you can't be. That's the thing, though, with all these schools, and it goes back to the rivalry conversation, is you never want to be the baby brother.
Yeah, but UCLA, it's different for UCLA, I feel like, because USC is, like, it's not the same as this, right? Whereas ASU and UA can, like, claim different territory or stuff like that. They're playing in the same city.
Yeah.
And one of them is, like, historically one of the best football programs of all time.
Yeah, but
full of Heisman winners. Like,
USC was shit 3 years ago.
No, you're not wrong. They also are USC, though. They got a different kind of money. They got a different kind of...
It's still LA. It's not like UCLA doesn't have donors and money.
Yeah, but it's not... It's like... It's just different. Like USC... UCLA is LA. USC is Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah. USC has celebrities. They have O.J. Simpson. They have Reggie Bush, which are probably not the... They have production.
That's crazy. Like, you said celebrities, and the very first one you went with was OJ.
I'm talking about football specifically.
Okay.
That, like, it is
very first one.
I mean, I would argue OJ is probably the most well-known USC player of all time.
It's crazy. We mentioned the Kardashian family in this show, and then we also mentioned OJ.
Well, yeah, we mentioned the Kardashian family again. Yeah. OJ, Kim's dad, OJ Simpson. That got some chuckles.
So pressure on UCLA.
I just don't think there's a whole. Like, I don't think anyone gives a shit about UCLA. Obviously, you can't be abysmal. You'll eventually get fired. And I'm not really sure what their administration's thought processes on this move to the Big Ten, right? Like that's probably one thing. You can't leave this season being like, oh my God, this team is going to embarrass us in the Big Ten next year. That can't happen. But as long as you're like, you beat the teams you're supposed to beat in this conference, which is probably most of them. I don't know exactly who they're supposed to play. Like if they have to play SC, Oregon, Utah, all three of those schools, then they might be in a little bit of trouble.
Look, my thing as it relates to the pressure on Chip Kelly and UCLA is different than the pressure on Dan Lanning and some of these other coaches. The pressure when you've got a situation like UCLA and USC isn't necessarily for like, okay, Lincoln Riley and SC and the Trojans, they're the baby brother this year. Like, it is more so the fact that you are 15 minutes away in campus-wise, right? There is always going to be a Trojans and Bruins rivalry, regardless of what conference you're in. When it comes to UCLA, is you need to outdo USC in terms of recruiting.
Yeah.
And the only way that you do that is if you prove that you are on the same level of USC. You don't have to necessarily be better. You don't necessarily have to beat them outright. But you cannot afford to slip the way that team did at certain points this season. Yeah. When they were on, they were on. When they were off, they were abysmal.
Yeah, I Connor saying UCLA comes to Corvallis. They don't have a great schedule. They host Coastal Carolina, then they go to San Diego State, which is like in today's college football.
That's a tough.
It's a pretty tough non-conference schedule to start your year as a Pac-12 team. And then, how do you open conference play? At Utah. And then you come back, host Washington State, and then you go to Oregon State, and then Stanford, and then you host Colorado, which we don't know. Then you go down to Tucson, which
like UCLA almost lost to South Alabama last year.
Yeah, man. And then they have to come here, or they host ASU, and then they have to go to USC. Like they don't have a great schedule.
No, they
have a chance to have an ASU-esque season, like ASU's season from last year. New quarterback, you don't really know what you're going to get there. Not sure how much. I don't know.
We'll see how bright the lights are.
Do not be surprised if Chip Kelly is not the coach next year, actually. I know I started saying that he doesn't have a lot of pressure.
Clip it, and ship it.
If this schedule goes as poorly as it has the potential to go.
Oh, we got breaking news.
Oh, God.
We got breaking NBA news.
Oh, God.
The Bucs have dismissed
Coach
Bud.
Oh, man.
That is wild.
That's so tough.
That is tough NBA news. Whew.
Real quick.
Talk about pressure.
Not a good coach. So ultimately I agree with it, but
man, what a month.
A tough time for coach. Like I feel bad for Coach Bud.
That is a tough thing. You see that? You see the breaking news on that? God, that is tough.
I agree that it's the right move for that basketball team, but to do that right now, a week after what he just went through is very tough.
Yeah, that's real tough. All right, before we get out of here, Lincoln Riley, pressure or no?
You got to make the college football playoff. I know it's year 2, but you got to do it. Your defense can't be dog shit. I think the expectation is you go undefeated in the conference, which is a lot easier said than done. I don't think it's not going to be like you lose one game and you're a failure. But I think you go into every game expecting to win it.
Yeah.
And I think leaving with anything less than a conference championship is a failure. I think you got to make the college football playoff. You don't have to. Like Lincoln Riley's not getting.
You might have to.
Lincoln Riley's not getting fired if they miss the college.
No, he's not
playoff.
getting fired, but
it is definitely like this might be your last chance.
It also is
before you go to that conference.
No, because you're going to get the expansion. But
but I'm saying you're going to be playing hard competition.
Yeah.
You're going to be potentially the 4th best team there, depending on how your Penn States of the world do.
2 things on Lincoln Riley before I get out of here. Tulane, the way that you ended the season, losing that bowl game. That leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth, and you are the laughingstock of college football for the last few months. And you have a guaranteed #1 overall pick in Caleb Williams. Like, clip that and ship it right now. Regardless of what happens in the season, Caleb Williams should be the first overall pick.
Yeah, and don't think about, I mean, that's not exactly what we're talking about, but as far as with this team going to the Big Ten, like, they're going to have to do that with a new quarterback.
Yes.
Caleb Williams will be gone.
Yes.
Against harder teams. I don't know how USC fans are feeling about this, but I would not be excited at
They've talked their way into
to be going to the. Yeah, I'm sure they've
talked their way in it. But guess what? You get to play Ohio State and Michigan every year.
But with this expansion, like I would not want to be going to the Big Ten right now.
No, you'd want to stay in the Pac-12.
I understand there's the money thing, but if you're USC,
but you get money for going to the college football playoff.
Man, I don't.
It is definitely going to be an interesting look. I would say before we get out of here, my coaches in terms of pressure to succeed, my rankings: number 1, Deion Sanders; number 2, Dan Lanning; number 3, the one and only Lincoln Riley.
I mean, it's tough because what success for those guys are so different.
You're right.
Whoa, Connor. Connor saying he likes Michael Penix Jr. over Caleb Williams for the NFL. Like I like to say, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I'm going to strongly disagree with you there, but hey, I am a big fan of Michael Penix Jr. Remember when he was a Heisman candidate? Because I do. Remember when Indiana was good at football for a year?
No.
They were.
Don't remind me about the state of Indiana ever.
I don't know what my ranking would be. I'd say I'm gonna go with has the most pressure. I think Utah has the most pressure. I'm gonna go Utah, Oregon, and then Colorado is. No, I'm not gonna put Colorado there. I'm gonna go Utah, Oregon,
Whittingham, Lanning,
Whittingham, Lanning, and Lincoln Riley. I think just because if Lincoln Riley is in a situation where they're supposed to be a top 5 team in the country, if you're anything less,
you're right. You're absolutely right, guys. That is gonna do it for us today. But real quick, if you're looking for a place to watch NBA basketball this weekend, why don't you go ahead and do it in Tempe at Four Peaks 8th Street Pub. Guys, it's an absolute blast. It's a whole vibe over there. And that's without even mentioning how good the food and the drinks are. I don't know about you. I'm a big WoW guy. I know you've been on Kilt Lifter lately.
Yeah, I love Kilt Lifter. I love WoW. I love Peach Ale. I love Hazy. I love Hot Knot. I love Golden Lager.
Their beers don't miss, guys.
They really don't.
Be sure to follow them on social at Four Peaks Brew and Four Peaks Pub to get all the latest on Arizona's premier craft brewery. I know they've got some events coming up that we'll tell you about a little bit later on. But again, check out Four Peaks Brew or Four Peaks Pub on social to keep up with all of the great stuff that they got going on. You do got to be 21 or older to drink Four Peaks. And guys, please drink responsibly.
I feel you, by the way, Connor. I did forget that he did not have a great game, Caleb Williams, against Oregon State. So Oregon State fans probably have a slightly different perspective on that conversation.
Fair.
But after you have a good lunch, good dinner, whatever at Illegal Pete's, you have your Four Peaks, maybe some margaritas. Scoot on over to Scottsdale.
Scoot on over.
Mavericks, Octane. They got Four Peaks on tap, so you can keep drinking your wows. Then maybe hop on some go-karts. I was gonna say golf carts. Go-karts, maybe bowl a little bit, maybe play some laser tag, maybe some VR, maybe some arcade games, maybe some axe throwing, maybe you just want a nice meal. Mavericks, Octane, they got it all. Tons of different events they got going on throughout the summer as well. So it's really just a vibe out there. We talked about it before. I just love games. I love playing. I love competing. Octane, Mavericks, perfect place to do that. So check out octaneraceway.com and Mavericks with an X.com, Mavrix.com to learn more.
Jose in the chat, turn up the likes. What are you doing? That's right. Hit that like button on your way out, guys. If you enjoyed the content, give us a follow at PHNX _Sun Devils. You can follow me at Anthony _Totri. You can follow the man whose tummy hurts, that Shane Deef. You can follow Shawn at Pause, at Shawn _Pause.
Believing in the Beavs as always, baby.
We'll see you Friday at 2 p.m. But for now, peace.